So Adriana's therapy interfering behavior. So again, life-threatening, therapy interfering. Therapy interfering behavior of canceling sessions due to lack of childcare was also addressed and problem solved by increasing environmental support. So a few things, really making sure using this strategy of consultation to the client. Hey, Adriana, can we get you to talk to your Mark about being backup on days that you've got therapy, right? Can we hire a babysitter, right? At this point, she's not using any childcare. And so she actually was willing to hire a babysitter for our sessions, and then also have sort of a backup person, because what had been happening was her kids were supposed to go to friends' houses, they would cancel. And what we found was that a babysitter was a lot more reliable. In session, Adriana's therapist targeted that shutdown behavior in a variety of ways, including validating her emotional experience. Yeah, no, I totally hear you. I am asking you really, really hard questions that completely make sense that you want to avoid answering. Dragging out and reinforcing accurate expression, right? And at the same time, so holding up the dialectics, this is not helping you. This is the kind of response that is going to keep you stuck. So what is actually happening here? How do I get you to then tell me, what is your experience right now when I start talking to you about your mom? And then reinforcing it. Thank you. Oh my gosh, that is so helpful. I love that you just did that. That is incredible. And then using some more informal contingency management techniques, right? And so turning away, using less warmth when Adriana was engaging in behavior that the clinician did not want to see. So quality of life behavior. Sessions also focused on helping Adriana engage in a variety of behavioral activation tasks outside of session, particularly given her tendency to isolate when her emotions became overwhelming. So really leaning into the accumulating positive skill. She started taking twice weekly walks with other mothers at her children's school, as well as attending a weekly pottery class. So one of the things that was a big challenge was that so much of Adriana's social life was focused on her kids that she really wasn't doing anything for herself. She continued to attend couples therapy with Mark. They both learned skills in validation and dialectics, and they targeted those problematic communication patterns. And then this was a big win. Adriana eliminated 2 of her children's after-school activities and instead really focused on building one-on-one unplanned fun time. And so they would play at home. They'd do art projects. They learned how to make bread. They went to the playground, but having a little bit more fun and sort of camaraderie infused into their time together. Letting go of some of the control, the overscheduledness. And then really, again, increasing skills. So the big one was in practicing mindfulness to current emotion, both in and out of session, really helping Adriana slowly learn to notice her emotions in her body rather than taking medications or going to sleep to avoid the emotions. She started recognizing those early signs of dissociation. So, we started to notice like the thought, I can't handle this, or I'm such a screw up. Those tended to precipitate shame, which would like send her straight into dissociation. And so one of the plans was, hey, when you notice this thought, I can't handle this, I'm such a screw up, that's the time to grab ice. That's the time to grab hot sauce. That's the time to do jumping jacks. And then the therapist would also assign some early in vivo exposure tasks. These are these kind of in real life experiments to test problematic beliefs. And so, the therapist asked Adriana, hey, let's leave the dishes undone after dinner. Let's forget to vacuum, right? To kind of help her tolerate not having it all together. So, treatment was going along swimmingly. Everything was on track. Adriana and her provider identified behaviorally specific markers to commence DBT-PE with a tentative start date of early June 2023. And as I so often say as a DBT therapist, you got to go in with a plan, and at the same time, you got to be able to throw the plan out when throwing the plan out is what is needed. So in mid-May, unbeknownst to Adriana's provider, Mark ended up disclosing in couples therapy that he was having an emotional affair with a colleague. They had been texting, they'd been emailing, spending a lot of time together, and that he slept with this colleague once when they were both attending a conference about a year and a half earlier. And so at this disclosure, Adriana, understandably very upset, and she became acutely suicidal. She overdosed on her medication. She decided she did not want to die, thankfully, and called a friend who called 911 when she was taken to the ER. Adriana was admitted to the hospital where she stayed in a psychiatric unit for 5 days. And when she returned to her individual therapist at the end of May, she recommitted to treatment, recommitted to taking suicide off the table. Adriana and her therapist went back through the parameters to begin DBT-PE. And then between May and August, really worked to accomplish all of those goals with a new targeted start date of September 1st.